Okay, we're live. This is the Synth Summit Show, episode 11, and I've got Peter Grenader here of EAR Synth, Electro-Acoustic Research. And basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be discussing everything from filters and Eurorack modules to a little bit of the history of his company and what's going on with it. He's got a bunch of new products that should be coming out, and we're basically gonna take a time traveled trip into the past. So, Peter, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what gives you the damn right to make Eurorack modules?
Okay, one, Ken, I want to thank you for doing this. Okay, in this stage of my life and my career, any good attention is better, but any attention is good. I really appreciate this. Okay, I mean it's important. I think based on the current events of electroacoustic research, and you're a great guy, and I think it's going to be fun. So why do I do this? I had a real opportunity to ask myself that question these last 5 years. Okay. And I think that might sound boastful. A weaker man would have skedaddled. But the basic thing is, it's because right now it's the only thing I can do. It's not the only thing I can do. It's the only thing I can do. Okay, so it's still in there. I think I still have things to introduce that would be helpful to composers and artists. And it's just a friggin' blast, man. And you know, if I'm thinking about it all the time, I might as well share it. And I was an art director for 15 years. You get really used to clients or people hating things that you do, okay? And the skill in that is that you are confident and you can handle rejection kind of thing. So it's like, let's run it up a flagpole, see who salutes, and that's it. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So that's the deal.
So let's talk a little bit about what were some of the first products that you were releasing in the synthesizer world?
Okay, this is a funny story. Let me tell you how I got back into music in general, which for me means synthesizers. Okay, so I'm an art director, and my biggest client bought me out, and I became captive as an art director for a company called Miller and Kreisel. They're a speaker company. They invented the power subwoofer. They're huge in the 5.1 world. There's a myth that because they're so directional and the imaging is so much clarity in imaging, they can't be used for music. That's wholesale horseshit. But there was a guy there named Barry Ober, and I can't remember the other Ken, I don't remember his last name, who used to work at Moog. Ken is now one of the principal guys and the head of engineering for Blue Sky speakers, but he's the guy that designed the programmer for Keith Emerson's Moog, okay? Barry, I don't know what he did at Moog, but Barry one day told me that there was something I had been waiting for, a computer program that modeled the conventions of a modular synth. And he talked about the Nord. So after work that day, I lived right by West LA Music. I flew by there. They had one. Nobody knew how to use it. But the guy mentioned Reactor. I went home. I was still very actively involved with bicycle racing. And within 20 minutes, man, I downloaded the program over the internet. My bike racing day, I don't know if I moved a pedal after that, and I was sold. Okay, fast forward about 4 months. It's now the NAMM show, and you're a speaker company. So you're going to be giving speakers to different booths, whatnot. And this was one year when there was the synth people, and Dieter was there, and Analog Solutions. What was it, Technotronics? What was that company, Ken? The one that had the blue like leopard marking, Technosaurus. Oh. Technosaurus, I think, something like that.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that in a while.
Yeah. I remember Mike Peake was really into those things. They were really a bitch to fix because they would scrape off the IC names, which was like, really? This isn't a Russian missile. No one really cares. And we know where you're getting these circuits anyway. They're probably all Electronotes, right? You can tell by the functionality on the faceplate. So anyway, I'm walking down there. I meet Dieter, and if anyone hasn't met Dieter Dofer, I just want to say for the record, he is a consummate gentleman. He's a smart guy. He did it right. And he's just always been a good friend for me through thick and thin. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the sequencer specifically, and it's just going left to right, left to right, left to right. And I said, do you ever, because I cut my teeth on a Buchla 200 as far as sequencing, and I said, do you ever think about the possibility of it not going left to right, or a pendulum, or random, or controlled by an external source? And he kind of cocked his ear like a collie, and I got it, and I went home. I had engineering skills. Before my art direction days, I got out of Cal Arts. There was, we had learned how to compose on these massive Buchlas. What the hell are you going to do when you get out? Those things are $40,000. You're going to make music with rubber bands, So most of us ended up at Serge's place for one reason or another. I got some soldering skills. You're going to be nervous. But in the meantime, you know how to solder. Go get a job and get the fuck out of the house, right? And that's what I did. And I went home that day and I started thinking about what became the Milton sequencer. And that was the first product. I built some of the circuits that Mark Verbos had put on his site at that point. And then I was asked by a gentleman to build one of the Buchla kits. Ken, do you know about the infamous Buchla kits?
Well,
in the garage sale?
Yeah, I've heard about a few pieces now. I've heard about some kind of, I've heard about them being fairly archaic to build, though. So. Well,
yeah, you get a printed circuit board that has no silk screen on it and a faceplate, and maybe a wiring diagram and maybe a schematic. Though he's understandably apprehensive about that, but the Buchla is all over the place on the internet as far as schematics. And I built his 258 oscillator, okay? And I love the 258. And even Mort told me he thought the 258 was the best oscillator Buchla ever made. And I thought about how to modernize it. I like the triangle core, and I'll talk about that. And I think that is the only thing that makes my oscillator unique, or maybe more interesting to people. I do understand there's a certain amount of fable attached to it now, and that's fine. But and that's what I did. He did everything discreetly.
You're talking about, though, that was that Eurorack spec?
Like,
no, did you convert it to Eurorack, or did you leave it as
that's what I did,
or what?
No, I did it. At this point, I had bought equipment. I bought a rack of analog. It was Dieter's and Analog Systems and Analog Solutions, but not for the purpose of making sound, for the purpose of generating control voltages that I was then converting to MIDI and using to attack the MIDI implementation charts of my Supernova 2 and a 16 I had. Okay, so I was there, but I knew it was going to happen. Okay, I knew I was going to start making analog music. I can't think as a composer without knobs. And for some reason, even after I got the mini knob box with Reactor, it still wasn't doing. Okay, so yes, I rethunk, completely changed all the wave shapers outside of Sine Shaper, which is not Buchla's design, by the way. Modernized the core and did an oscillator for my system. I had a couple of oscillators in Blasted. I love those oscillators, but I wanted to experiment. And one day it was the Yahoo list. It was the Dofer Yahoo list. Somebody said, I wish he would do a 259 equivalent. And I said, well, I have a 258, which is a little bit higher, more developed, and has some other features in it. It's 258-esque. And if you want me to do it, I'll do it. 2 days later, I have 87 orders. And that was really tough because it was me and my Australian Shepherd, which meant me. I think that's where I first got the reputation of falling behind. There's nothing I could do. It was a lot of work. And that's where it started. That's where I said, I had released the Milton now as a kit, and it took off a little bit. There was about
Now, was this under the Plan B name, or was this
no,
what
no,
did it have a name?
no, no. And the Milton was Milton by Peter. Okay, but when I did the oscillator, that's when I said, okay, let's get formal about this. Stick a logo on it, and that's when Plan B came up. I was driving to dinner with Roger Cordell, who runs Big City Music, and we drove by a design company and said Plan B Design. I said, fuck, that's it. And I did it. And the funny thing is, about 2 months after that, I hated that name, and I got stuck with it. Now that's why I don't use it any longer. It's okay. It didn't have longevity for me. So anyway, the 250 and the Model 15 was born. The Model 15 was named Model 15 because if you add up 2, 5, 8, you get 15. Buchla 250. Yeah. About that time, Cynthia Webster and I went to Jim Patchell's synth meet up in Santa Barbara, and that's where I met Mike Brown. Okay, and Mike was an extraordinarily personable guy. Ken, did you ever meet him?
I've never met him. No.
He was just a nice guy, man, and we hit it off. He lived in Portland at the time. He was thinking of moving down, and it was just a momentum thing. He knew he was being pulled down here because he wanted to be around the scene. I knew I was going to start doing this because very soon before I went to this thing with Cynthia, I got laid off. Miller and Chrysler was imploding from the world's worst president. Took the company from like 35 million in the bank to nothing in a year. Unbelievable. It was a 35-year-old legacy. And I had to do something. My dog had to eat, right? And so I'm doing it. And then Mike Brown said, do you want to do something together? I don't work well with others. I've never worked well with others. When I had a job, it was like, boss, just leave me alone. Tell me what to do. Just don't watch me. I will really please you if you let me have my freedom. And I was hesitant. At the next NAMM show, I still wasn't Plan B. I was there to support Roger Cordell at Big City Music, and I met Steve Reitner. We all went to lunch, and that's when we formally talked about it. It took me about 2 months to say, okay. We were originally going to bring in the guy from Banana Log. I do not remember his name. And what I said to myself was, what do I need the help with? Now, there's the emotional support and all that, but you don't have to be involved formally to do that.
Sure.
What I thought is we could buy larger quantities of shit and share the discount.
Absolutely.
And that's how, yeah. And I thought, that really appealed to me. So that's where it started. The Banana Log guy was moving to Austin. He was polite to us, but never happened. So it was Mike, Steve, and I, and then was like 4 months of real meetings. He lived in Long Beach. I lived in Toluca Lake. That means nothing to anyone, but that's a horrid 40-mile drive. I mean, just the worst traffic in Southern California. And we're meeting at night. Mike had a job. Steve had a job. I did not. And we formulated it. We then talked to, my old age and encroaching insanity is taking my memory away. What was that Englishman who made modules? I thought his name was Ken also. There was another line. He announced he was going to stop. We talked to him about licensing. I want to talk about that and clear the air on that because there was some ill will and bad blood floating around the internet that was absolutely unfound. And I said, okay, we got to launch with some products here. So I started with the Model 15, of course, the Model 13 dual tambour gate, the Model 12, which was my very own original filter design. I had never done one before, and the Model 17, which is the world's most insecure, misunderstood module ever. People that have them can't live without them. People that don't understand them don't see the need. And Mike had his, what was that control voltage generator of his, something Tron. Come on, Gizmo. What was it? His first. It was a brilliant dual LFO that could cross modulate. I can't remember the name, and I apologize. Uh, and I talked to Niall Steiner, he and I had a relationship, a telephone relationship, and we would just talk about the old days. And when you talk to Niall Steiner about the old days, it's like you're a lamb at the foot of Jesus. You know, you're just listening. He has sky. So we would do that. And I asked him if he would mind if Mike did the Steiner filter. And he didn't mind at all. And that was the Freakenstein. And that's what we launched with. 4 products of mine, 2 products of Mike's. One of the most exciting days of my life. And Mike was just ecstatic that we announced it. We kind of jumped the world with it. You know, if you make a link live on the internet, and it starts an avalanche, and the orders were flying.
Just to clarify, at this point, the Eurorack industry was a whole lot smaller too.
Oh yeah, you know? there was oh, Dieter, of course. There was Analog Systems, Analog Solutions. But Analog may have beat us. Didn't beat me though. I think I was the 3rd. There was it was infantile. Okay, and it wasn't I didn't know where I was going to go with this, and I liked that. Okay, I've always been a jump in the water, figure out how deep it is kind of guy once I'm in there. But it was so fun that first night of the orders coming in, and then, you know, comes the responsibility of orders, right? And that was it. So that's how it started. I had a few ideas. It was my intention, because of the way I approach composing music, to get the Buchla mindset into Eurorack. It seemed immediately apparent to me when I saw the Eurorack stuff that Moog had won the war. Okay, and they're marvelous instruments, but the conventions are completely different. The way you composer goes about making his decisions completely different.
Well, you'll notice you have a relation to Morton Subotnick, right?
I do.
So you were kind of down that line.
Yeah, at West Coast, East Coast, that term has changed definitions about 100 times since this interview was started.
Sure.
But yeah, and I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I started. There's a friend of mine in high school. There was a very, very brilliant music teacher at my high school. This is, I don't know about fate, man. I really don't. But that was a fateful event for me. And Mario and I would drive home together. I didn't have a car, and he would talk about this. And he had a way of talking. He would list your interests, right? And I took the class. It was an electronic music class. The guy had a VCS3, and he was the kind of guy that would sit there and listen, and he would turn the indexing of a FM up a billionth of a turn. He'd sit back and listen, and was of primary importance to crafting who I became. Okay. And I knew of CalArts. It was right up, you know, over a little mountain range from LA. John Waddell, his name was his teacher. He would play a lot of music. He played, you know, Six Wives of Henry VIII, a lot of Wendy Carlos. And then he said, okay, we're going to play something now from a very strange synthesizer that works differently and a very strange type of music. Open your heads and drop the needle. And it was Wild Bull, and it blew my fucking head off. Okay, I mean, I'm getting literally emotional talking about that. And you know, I got the record cover. We were listening. I'm looking at the 200. I'm like, what? Look at, there's a million knobs. Yeah, and it was the FM that got me.
Yeah.
Wendy used FM as a way of crafting timbre, but she's melodic and she's amazing at what she does in that. You know, Rick Wakeman's all mini mode, right? Low pass filter, very pretty.
Sure, sure. More straightforward.
Yeah, but more like, what the? But one thing I was able to do is immediately pick off traditional musical form out of that cloud of sound sculpture. Okay, now
I think that's a great term for it too.
Yeah.
A cloud of sound sculpture, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and So a friend of mine, another high school friend, had been accepted to CalArts drama school, and he said, "Why don't you write up with me? I have to go up there." I went up. He did his work. I'm sorry, and I went down the hallway of the music school, past B303, the first bugle at the door was open, past B304, the second big huge 200, but actually the 500, and into B305. And I just ran to the administrative office. Ken, the cutoff was the next fucking day.
Now, was it a crowded situation of people
They
clamoring
accept,
to get on these things?
yeah, and CalArts accepts 3 students to the composition school per year at that point. The school only had 700 students in total, both graduate and undergrad. I may, is this story going too deep? Do you like the depth I'm going into it?
No. Well, I mean, to be perfectly frank, viewers be damned. It's what I'm curious about. So
Okay.
it's my show, and they don't
Okay.
pay me. So,
so anyway, but next to this, I had been in an electronic music concert at this place called Brand Library, and it was reviewed by the LA Times, and I got a really good review for one reason. I was a high school student. I was a novelty, right? I was the little kid on the bass guitar that's playing like Jacob Astorius that goes viral, right? And that review in the Times, my application and a recommendation letter from that brilliant teacher at high school, I got into CalArts. I'm all ready to go to study with Mort Sabatnik. I cannot believe this. And then I got there and I was told point blank, Mort only works with graduate students. And I was like, fuck. And who's this guy, Barry Schrader? He sounds like a dentist, right? And he's now one of my best friends. And he was my mentor for every year but one. And look, Ken, you got to make opportunities in your life, right? If you want to be a cyclist and you're at an airport and you're standing next to Greg LeMond, you strike up that conversation. Mort was never there except the second term of each year, and there was the second 2 terms. CalArts at the time was tri-semester, and he came by once, and I mean I was nervous. He was a celebrity to me, and he had an NEA grant for a project called the Game Room, which was a multimedia piece of sound, visuals, and it was based on participants triggering a game board, which looked like a chessboard, but it was aluminum, and there was a micro switch in the center, and the piece would be heavy enough to set off an event. Okay, and I got involved. I was able to. I don't know how I don't remember that part, but I sold myself somehow to let this teacher, this composer, this legend, who wouldn't talk to. He would not talk to undergrads. He didn't want to deal with them. I totally appreciate that, but he let me in. Gary Chang and I were assigned to write music for it. Jill Frazier, I don't remember what Jill did, probably music. Daryl Johansson, who became Serge Tourette's partner, was working on the technicalities of integrating the lights. And there was another guy named Ray Weissling who made the bugle control lighting. And this was so beyond its time. You're a game board, 2 players. There is a light, the typical light, with the metal shade hanging on the game board. It's someone's turn to do something. As soon as that micro switch was closed, the light would fade out, and it would either be a musical event or an optical event with strange videos of close-ups of people's mouths. And the issue was to find a way to, excuse me, can't take, that's kind of embarrassing. It's my mother, and
that's so appropriate.
Yeah. Is that you?
No, that's you.
What is that? Okay. I am so sorry.
We're so connected in this age.
We're so connected. Anyway, so if I remember correctly, the gist of the game was if you can repeat turns which the same event happens, you continue and you overtake people. And that was it. Mort and I hit it off really well. There's a picture on his second record in Mode Records of Jill and Daryl and a woman named Susan Harvey, who's now a professor at Princeton. and Morton and I in B304. That was during that, and that was it. And I worked with Morton a few other times at CalArts, and then everyone left our circle of people, and I retained a friendship. I retained friendships.
Would you say, though, that that basic relationship of coming up and seeing Morton and the whole Buchla scene on the West Coast really kind of formed what you wanted to make when it came down to when you wanted to make circuits for synthesizers? Was that the primary driving factor?
It was more than influence, it was derivative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I wanted to be able to create a system that would give me a Buchla-esque voice. You'll notice I have the Evil Twin filter. I've got my low pass gate, the Tamro gate. I have a random voltage source, similar. I think mine's actually, sorry, Don, better because it's a little bit more controllable. I have a linear envelope generator, the Model 10. Vactrals don't like exponential voltages. People like to see the light of an envelope generator track the event, and in a low pass gate, it's got to be linear because you're going to hear shit way before the light starts turning on. Okay, and that was my goal. Now, honestly, I did want to go through world domination. That was not an ambition of mine to have a complete closed Plan B system, and I did make it. Okay, my last NAMM show in 2009, I was showing a Plan B system, 2 different options. Noisebug and I must have sold 3 or 4 of them. It was great because they sold one the day the store opened. So everyone was thinking, okay, this was the best decision in the world to get Grenader involved. And then everything imploded, and but I got there. I could give 2 shits about that right now. One, I think it's ridiculous for any manufacturer to think he's going to dominate one guy's pocketbook.
To just touch on that a little bit, a couple of the Plan B stuff, just to kind of give a little bit of context to the situation. Plan B stuff, early Euro rack manufacturer, some of the people that latched on to you guys, like Dana Carey from Tool, right?
Yeah.
9 Inch Nails, they were
that was a big one. Steve Roche was another one, and Cypal Sandler.
So the Plan B stuff was really latched onto by some very high level guys.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the reason you have EAR now, right? You've got Electro-Acoustic research now. Plan B eventually went away, right? Now when Plan B went away.
I'm very willing to talk about
a lot of what's that?
I'm very willing to talk about those details if you want, but go ahead.
Well, I just want to touch on it just so that just to kind of clear the air. That way, because I'd like to see things kind of move forward. So EAR is basically Plan B kind of reimagined. Am I right?
Yeah, well, the consortium that was Steve Reitner, Mike Brown, and Peter Grenader was called EAR. Okay, that was always there. It was like the name of the consortium, but the outward manifestation was Peter Plan B, Mike Livewire, and Steve was more going to be, because he's really good, he's really organized. He was more the sales guy. He was going to take the role of Anna at Dark Place, okay, and do the marketing thing. So the name was always there. I just want to say something. There was a time in my life, 2012, 2011, I would have sold my soul for someone to say, clear the air. Okay. I take full responsibility. And I'm as human as you are, Ken. I went through those 5 stages of bullshit people go through of denial. Okay. I didn't cause the incidents that caused the problem, but I didn't adequately manage the problem as a business person to avoid it. Okay. We were being pushed out of our friggin' mind for numbers when we were at Noisebug. And, I had one guy. When we moved to Pomona, When we moved the business out of my house in Toluca Lake to a business place in Pomona, which was a loft at Noisebug, I had one guy. We had to hire a staff, 5 guys, get them, this is a soldering iron, this is a resistor, you know, that level to building humongous quantities. We were at the end, we were doing 60 units a week. Okay. I mean, this is, I had a
now at this point, there wasn't anyone that you could go to there wasn't anyone you could go to have a manufacturing process done that actually understood these circuits, right?
Oh, yes, there was. Mistake number 1 on Grenader's side. Yes, there was.
Okay.
It was a sense of pride and maybe arrogance, because I'd grown up professionally for 10 years at various companies supporting manufacturing as an engineer, and I knew how it worked. But and I remember Sean Clear saying, "What the hell are you doing? You know, we got a guy. What are you doing?" And that was the first one. Second mistake, releasing 7 products in one day. Okay, I did the ELF products, which were the thin ones, and I was the first guy to stick knobs on 2-centimeter wide modules. And I shouldn't have done it in one day. I shouldn't have done it as a group. I should have fanned them out. And we were starting to ship errors. Okay. There was a time when we had a 95% reject rate in test.
95% reject rate?
Oh, yeah. And this is what I did. I sat everyone down. I said, check this out. We're going to reverse those. 5% is the worst reject rate on the planet, but I will accept that right now. That if you give me 100 modules to test, 5 are bad, I will accept that. But since everyone's putting a stamp that indicates who you are that built this, if you pass a reject to me, the rework time is coming out of your pay. 2 days later, we were at 2% reject. Okay. And am I stuttering? Is my image stuttering on your side?
You're okay. You're okay.
Because if I showed you what's going on at QuickTime,
don't worry about it.
Anyway,
bad, people will start messaging me, and that'll be an issue. So,
anyway, and that way means they were screwing around. I don't blame them. These guys didn't want to be Synth builders. They wanted, it was a job. They were young, and that was the second problem. I don't really want to talk formally about the thing that put me out of business.
Okay.
I will hint at it. But then Noisebug and I exploded. He asked me to leave in 2 weeks. We left in 1 week on Valentine's Day. I'll have you know, it was a sneak attack. We all met there at 11 o'clock at night. And when they worked the next day, our loft was empty. I found a place in the Hell's Bakery building. We moved back to LA. Ken, when we moved from Noisebug to back to LA, and that meant Noisebug is a distributor to Big City Music, I had 25 Model 15s as the only source of revenue to make that move. That's how tight it was. And we sold them to Roger, and that's how we restarted.
So,
and we started, look, there were some problems. I was behind like 4 weeks in delivery in a Model 32.
That's what I really wanted to ask about, because that seems to be where a lot of the gripe was. A lot of the ill will was, and I just want to be clear. So there was previous issue of people saying that they had paid money and hadn't got modules or whatever.
Well, the Model 32 specifically. And
did this get handled, or like what?
Everything has been handled.
End game of this.
Okay. Before, if they weren't getting modules, we didn't do direct sales. It was distributors part, or the sales, the store. But this time it was me, and it was about, I think, 20 of them, and I was 4 weeks behind. But it hit the internet, it hit Mouth Wiggler, and it took off like wildfire. And the second issue was repairs. When Noisebug would get a repair in, I would get it with a work order. I didn't know who the hell it came from. Noisebug and I break up. I take the repairs. I did not know where these repairs came from. Some of them I did, because I had talked to the people, but a lot of them I didn't. And I wasn't able to, I put notices up, this oscillator, blah, blah, and 17 guys say, it's mine. Okay, yeah. Now, so I had about 25 repairs, and we were working the Model 32 issue, which is a very hard module to build. Anyway, two companies in Europe wrote a letter to Roger Cordell saying, we will not do business with you any longer if you continue doing business with a despicable company like Plan B. Now, that is against international trade law, but what am I going to do? Go to the UK or Sweden and, you know, in a powder wig law room and defend myself? I didn't have enough money to feed my dog at that point. And our quantities on new builds went to as much as you can build, 2.5 in 1 week. I had 6 guys that I had just dragged their ass from Pomona to LA. And I take responsibility for the fact that these guys have to pay their friggin' rent. Okay, I don't care if I don't eat, but they gotta eat. That I cannot ask that of them. Okay,
Sure.
And I had to lay everyone off. Oh man, I remember that day. I was sobbing. It wasn't a personal failure thing. It was these guys, and I saw the looks in their eyes. They're immediately thinking, "Oh, fuck the rent. Oh shit,
Sure.
I just wrote a check this week for this." And then suddenly we were 2 people because I couldn't pay them if we were building these repairs. There's no revenue stream.
Okay.
All right. So that letter basically killed us, and we were gone. And then for 5 months,
that was the end of Plan B, as far as trying to sell new product and trying to repair whatever was out there.
Yeah, the Model 32 was the first of a group of 6 modules that were publicized. At least I didn't release new product in that time. That would have been ridiculously insulting to the world had I said, "Here's the Model 40," you know. So I stopped all those plans. One of them, though, was the Steiner filter that I just released. So that's what happened, guys. The internet it became a big melee where people were making up stories about me. Yeah. Now, I want to say one thing if I can. It's wonderful to be back. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful that I did the work. It's wonderful that I respected the process of forgiveness. I didn't tell people they were wrong for feeling how they felt. Okay? I stuck up for myself as far as innuendos, who wouldn't? And I began a process of paying people off. The first one was when I was fortunate enough to have Kevin Key approach me of Stick Guinea Puppy to license the 11 and the 37. And I paid LB Design before I paid myself.
Now, this was to take Plan B modules, convert them to SMD format, or like what was the process there?
Oh yeah, I was planning to go SMT. That I had to. It's stupid. It is stupid otherwise. Okay, and I thought it's just a paradigm shift. It's a different, you know, instead of having leads, you have pads, and they're smaller. But yeah, and that was Kevin. Thank you. That was the thing that ignited me, made me start working on all these modules we're doing now, and let me see there was hope. Okay, it was tough, dude. Okay, it happens a lot in a person's career. There's that one moment of collapse, happened to my dad, and that's when you're being challenged and judged by yourself. What are you, a man or a mouse? And I'm not, and that means, are you going to play by the rules you have to play with, or are you going to implode more and tell everyone they're full of crap and screw up? There's a few other companies that went through this that elected to go that route, but I didn't. Okay, but let me just say something I want to say. My father went through this with me. He saw what happened. He was very proud of me when we went to Noisebug.
Now he had passed away recently, right?
Yeah, 2 days before he died, I was able to tell him, and he knew it, that I had gotten back, that we had delivered a book package to Dark Place, and it was happening. And he said, I knew you'd do it. Now, excuse me, I am sorry. I can't talk about Bob still.
Take your time.
It didn't happen when he passed away because all sorts of other shit happened because he passed away. Okay. But I was able to fucking tell him I got there on my own. I might have borrowed some money from him. It was negligible. You know, there was a time when I asked him for 10 grand and he didn't want to do it. He could have done it, but he didn't want to do it. He wanted me to go through it. And I did it. So thank you. You know, so, you know, look, there was a lot of shit. There was an estate to deal with. There was some issues with my family. You know, that shit never happens easily. And I've always been, let it happen. I don't care when it happens. It's going to happen when it happens. So it happened now. Okay. And we're back. And thank you for asking me. I'm sorry for getting emotional.
No, it's completely
I'm
understandable.
a scruffy old dude. I don't love a lot of people, and God knows a lot of people don't love me. He was an exception. So I'm going to open up to the next question.
So basically I asked all about that because you have to kind of understand that, okay, there was a plan B and now there's not a plan B, there's an EAR. And so it's an inevitable question. The Eurorack scene since plan B
has exploded,
more than quadrupled, has probably more than tenfolded. With that being said, there's all sorts of room for new things that have come on the horizon. Now, you are linked up, as you just mentioned, with Dark Place Manufacturing, which basically is doing the bulk of a lot of manufacturing for a lot of companies nowadays. It seems like they've kind of gotten the manufacturing process down, understand what's required to make sure that there's quality build, and at the same time really help out these you know, the people that are trying to design these modules and get these products out. So what I really want to talk about is the new modules, the EAR modules that are coming out now. How did they come about, the design standpoint? So the first module is the new Steiner filter that you're doing. That's 4-pole.
And I was having a conversation with Niall like in 2007 on the phone, and he talks about the halcyon days, and they're fucking wonderful stories. And he's an exceptional human being. And there's certain people, I'm sure we all met, that there's a certain combination of honesty and humility and sweetness where you go, okay, he's either an alien or an angel, but I'm really glad he's talking to me on the phone, right? And he mentioned this filter circuit, and he said, hey, would you be interested in, I don't even know if he finished the sentence, because I knew the import of that. And we were going to release it as a 5-year anniversary module in Plan B. Well, I couldn't do that. So after Kevin and our project wound down, I was working on I started working on some other circuits, and I hesitantly recalled, I flaked on Niall, okay? He's an important man in this thing, and I felt apprehensive, but he said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Because remember, his company folded too. We had common ground here. I didn't have to explain that to him. I didn't have to try to reestablish my credibility as a human, because he knew what that was all about. He knew what slippery slope and how you're walking on banana peels all the time. So then we started on that, and it was a great process. He gave me the schematic. It was handwritten with all this shit, like phone numbers on the side of it. Excuse me. And I first built it, but I put me in it. I put a bi-directional processor for one of the FM inputs. I incorporated what was called the twin feature into it, which is the IFM sync, input frequency modulation sync. It had a lot of features at first. It was selectable to 12, 18, and 24 dB. It had some other stuff. I made a printed circuit board. I stuffed it myself with SMT. I had a faceplate made, boom, and I shipped it off to him. And he liked it, and he got some things improved, and he's a tinkerer like I. He has a much better knowledge of transistor theory than I do. And he loved the IFM sync. And I said to him on the phone, why don't we put one more zip feature in here? And I said, think about it now. And the next day he said, well, you know, what we do with IM sync to frequency, we can do also to the resonance control. That is hypercue. And we dropped the 3 modes. The 2 other slope modes didn't sound worth shit as compared to the 24. It's just so clean and sharp and brilliant. And that was it. Okay, so, and I knew that had to be the first one. The dual model 12 is ready. It's going to start in production probably in a couple of months. I'm going to try to pace these modules 2 months at a time. But working with Niall was excellent. He said to me on the phone once, Peter, you know, I've been screwing around on my bench now. He's retired. You know, making oscillators out of neon lights. It's like, what? You know, and there's videos on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I now know 2 people who know Niall Steiner personally. So yeah. I'm hoping that I can kind of parlay that into an interview with Niall as well.
Yeah.
So maybe he watches this. Who knows? But
well, he knows what I told him.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is, so this is a 4-pole Steiner filter, but it's not the same as the Steiner Parker filter. Is that correct?
No, not at all. It has
a little bit of the difference there, so that people understand the difference between something like this filter and something like, say, like the Mini Brute filter, which is a Steiner Parker filter.
Yeah, the similarity is the way where these inputs are injected into different parts of the circuit to get different modal outputs, low, high, band. There is a diode string, although it's 17 times longer in this module. Okay, that's it. But those 2 features, the second feature, the diode string, is enough to give it the basic timbral personality of the original Steiner. But instead of discrete, open-ended, open-loop transistor amplifiers, we have op amps. So you don't have if you touch a transistor on it when the radio's playing, it's going to come through your speakers problem. It's a lot quieter. The features that I added, the IFM sync, the hypercue, the processing things, that of course wasn't in the original. And this one mode that was in there from Niles design called spectral energy distribution, which is an intensity control. It's not a crossfader from dry to wet. It increases or decreases
the intensity control of the actual filtering or of the resonance?
No, of the filtering.
Really?
Yeah. So if it's low, it's still filtering, but it's very natural sounding. A lot of people don't they want their filters like, you know, Angeline, you know, they want, you know, and just, you know, but subtle filtering is also beautiful. It has its place. If you've ever listened to Morton Subotnick's and Till Spring, you tell me where you hear filtering. I know where it's there, but it's very subtle, natural. You also get these great rubbery sounds when it's set to the low setting. In high setting, it's as ballsy as you can get. You slap in that and the hypercue and the IFM sync, and it's Eric Clapton with a friggin' crybaby. And I am not trying to peddle you a bunch of crap there. It's really intense and distorted and great. Okay, so that's it. And that's, but the big difference in architecture were the incorporation of op amps instead of transistors for the
So I kind of looked into a little bit about the this filter in regards to Niall's legacy, and from now I don't know if this stuff is true, and that's why I get to ask awesome people like you. I
can give you the phone number of one.
The little bit of sleuthing that I did on the internet, some of the things that I saw were things like this was intended to be a like the next step in the Synthicon. Like this is supposed to be
not a Synthicon, the EVI.
Okay. See, and that's the thing, is that's where things get a little bit muddled on the internet. Is I'm reading about this stuff, and basically they're saying that it was supposed to be like his successor to his next filter that he designed that he was working on. Now, I don't personally know the deeper history there as to why the Steiner Parker had became what it became, but at the same time, I mean, along with Arturia running with it, which you can watch my last show, and I had Darcy on there, and he kind of talked about how Uvison was, utilizing that circuit as well, which I'm actually a big fan of it. And I don't know if it's completely just the fact that now I'm a younger synthesist, so I'm, and I say that relatively speaking, I'm 35 now, but
just a whippersnapper, bedwetter.
So yeah, but the Mini Brute and the mic, like the Mini Brute was the first brand new analog synthesizer I ever bought. Meaning it wasn't vintage or anything. It was kind of like a rebirth, and the fact that Arturia chose that was kind of like it gave a lot of light to Steiner, to Niall Steiner, and they made a lot of notice about that. And I personally really like, filters that scream and growl and, get really aggressive. And the Moog filter does it in one way, but the way that this filter does it is so much more like
the Moog filter, the Moog filter is the clean, wonderful Italian white version with the white gloves on it. It is beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that sound. I love that sound. But a lot of my friends that know me personally and know the music that I make for fun and know what I came up around know that I really enjoy dirt. Like I love just like everything from dirty hip hop, crackle on vinyl, that kind of stuff, to Nine Inch Nails industrial, dirty, over distorted guitars with really crappy guitar pedals and skinny puppies, kind of over distorted sound and that kind of stuff. So for me, it's like when I heard that this synth was coming and it was going to have this kind of this Steiner filter, which is the first time I had heard of it. I was really interested because I knew that it was going to be aggressive and the resonance would be kind of wild. Now, does the new EAR 4-pole filter, does it have that aggressive nature about it, or is that been tamed, or how does that relate to it being 4-pole?
It doesn't. It doesn't. But look, you can overdrive a filter. It's how it manifests distortion. If you overdrive a low pass gate, it sounds like a fucking kazoo. And I am putting that in a pile of bad things, okay? If you can overdrive this filter, this specific circuit, it gets richly distorted. And that's what you're liking, Ken, is you're basically clipping wave shapes inside the processing, okay? Yeah. You're bringing them to rail. But the Macro Brute, I don't know if it's the Synthicon or Synthesystem filter. It's not this one. I'll tell you something really great to give you an idea where Niall's head is at. I guess the new one is boasting 24 dB per octave slow.
Yeah. Now,
but he doesn't. Wait. He didn't know how that happened. He knows that ours is 24 by design, and he was worried that he thought I would think that he is giving the schematic of ours to somebody else, and he called me to assure me it wasn't. He didn't know how they did it. That's the sign of a great guy. Okay. We don't have a written contract, he and I. There's a bond of friendship and respect. So I don't know what design they have, but it's not this one.
Well, I will say this: I've talked extensively with Glenn Darcy, both on air and off air, and who, let me just say, is I wish more companies had somebody as enthusiastic as him, because some of these, and I say larger, but I always have to put stupid air quotes up because audio industry large is not what I think most people think it is. But I kind of spoke to him about that, and because we had talked for months before this show, and I said, hey, I was just kind of wondering, what you guys did about this, and he had mentioned to the fact that it's essentially, series. It's essentially a Steiner Parker that's been put in series so that you get that 4-pole as opposed to 2-pole. So kind of similar to if you were to take, a Micro Brute and a Mini Brute and run them in series, you could get that same thing, which I've been doing for, since they came out. And I really enjoy.
Series cores are very interesting. If you, without trying to give away the Model 16 too much, if you get a fixed filter bank and then put another one right after it, so each filter goes through the same circuit twice. The first output is fixed filter bank. The second output is vocoder.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so yeah, that's a very smart way of doing it. Interesting, interesting.
Well, if you say it's smart, then can I call myself smart for running my mini brutes in parallel?
Sure, sure.
I need all the bolstering that I can get at this
Oh,
point.
you don't. Yeah, I hear that one. Okay, I know that. I
So
know that. But let me talk about Niall's thing for a little bit, as
yeah,
you asked. One
absolutely.
interesting factoid: the first synthesizer he ever made was for Vladimir Yukhachevsky. Now, classically trained electronic musicians and/or Richard Devine, and/or people that are into the artistic, the art music side of
Sure.
synth know who Vladimir Yukhachevsky
Noise
is.
music.
He was one of the founders of the Columbia Princeton Electronic Music Center. He was the yin to Milton Babbitt's yang. I mean, they were like the Huntley Brinkley of electronic music. Huge guy, wonderful guy. Met him once at Cal Arts with Milton Babbitt, and he had. I guess there was a rule at Columbia that when you're 65, goodbye, you had to leave. Even a guy of his stature. So he went to teach at the University of Utah. Niall's company had Niall at the time was tinkering. He was a trumpeter with the Utah Symphony, and he built his first modular synthesizer for the University of Utah for Vladimir Yukhachevsky. Then he started doing it, blah, blah, blah. He started a company. He had similar but different type of business problems. It wasn't a delivery problem, though, and it went away. And he started, Ian Underwood, used to be in the Mothers of Invention, keyboardist, was doing a lot of studio work. He knew Niall. And he brought Niall in as a studio player because Niall had developed the EVI, basically a trumpet controller. And their first gig was, are you ready for this, Ken? Apocalypse Now.
Oh,
Listen, watch Apocalypse Now tonight, and you'll hear synth lines that could only be done on a trumpet. It led Niall to a 17, 19-year career as a studio musician. And how many EVI players are there? He got a lot of work. Yeah, and he did real well. And his EVI at the 90s was using exclusively sampling, but you still need a filter. And he designed this filter for that EVI setup. He built it and used to put it on the table, and use it in sessions.
well, let me ask you, because this is this is kind of counter what we were talking about earlier. So again, getting back to the whole West Coast side of things and the whole Cal Arts and Morton Subotnick and Buchla and all that stuff. Now that stuff didn't rely as heavily on filtering as
two of Mort's pieces.
Granted, there were filters in the Buchla, but it's not really, it was more about wave shaping and that sort of thing. So,
but the thing is, you got to remember Mort. Okay, Mort doesn't approach a synthesizer as turn up the resonance. He's sort of like turn up happy.
Sure.
And he just thinks about it a whole different convention. There's filtering in there, but he wasn't influenced by Yes and the Beatles. Okay, he was influenced by serial music, 12-tone, and romantic music. And he studied by, I forgot the name of the guy, at Mills College, who was a very famous, serial music composer. By that, I mean 12-tone structure. So it's so interesting if you put a Buchla 200 on Mars and you put one here and there were Martians, you would probably find things develop differently. And that Mort just thinks of filters for different reasons. There's a lot of filtering in Mort's music, just not in Until Spring and Sky, a Cloudless Sulphur. Look, nobody had more than one type of filter, maybe two. Okay, back in those days. And Buchla had his.
The reason why I bring that up, though, is just because the fact that this is the first real module that you're bringing out with EAR is interesting. It's an interesting change from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I have enough of a marketeer to know if you're going to come back, you got to come back with something that's interesting. And yeah, I was depending on the legacy of the first filter, his first, synth, and There's just a clear, just to grab someone's attention, just for that 1 second. And then once they do that, let the filter speak for itself. Okay, and I think it does. And look, one of my best friends in the world is Tim Lewis, Dipole Sander. He and Josh Hawley were two guys that called me when Rome was on fire. Okay, and they didn't want to talk about what happened. They just said, "Dude, how are you doing?" I didn't even know Josh. He sent me 2 of his modules he was making for nothing, just as you've had a lot of crappy days. Maybe this will give you a good one. Okay. And Tim called me from Wales, and he just was totally concerned in how I was doing. And 4 hours later, when I stopped crying, I'm kidding. And Tim came to visit for a week. We had a blast. And I had a filter ready for him. And he did this marvelous demo. And he's I don't know if you've heard Golden Communion, but it's getting a lot of traction in Europe. This is giving Nine Inch Nails and Gabriel a run for their money. Okay, if they hear it, they're going to raise their eyebrows. So he did this demo thing for me, and I think that's going to be important also. But the biggest thing that happened to me was the synth I did for Tool.
Okay? Yeah. Now
that's a great story.
Gotten to work pretty closely with some pretty major acts, and you've gotten to work pretty closely with Tool.
Yeah.
Dana Carey is known for a ridiculous synthesizer setup.
Ridiculous.
He's a collector of the highest echelon.
Yeah.
Now he's got everything from EMU and EMI and Buchla and pretty much all of it, right?
Yeah. He has a Synthy 100.
But he's been known to tour with the stuff that you've created.
Yeah. This is the deal. He was using the Synthy AKS to augment the beginning of his drum solos for like 6 years, and he was tired of it. Okay. He wanted to be able to do more things. I met Danny through Kevin Key. Danny has a Buchla, a marvelous Buchla 200 that had a Marf. I had just fixed the Marf. No one could figure out how to run that thing. Okay, and then you read the book, and it makes you more confused. Okay, John Buchla is extraordinarily intelligent, has a high level of, he speaks in a high level of technical English, and he doesn't translate it to the common man. It's hard to get what the hell he's talking about. So I got it working. I remember Danny was filming the whole thing, so he could reference it later. Sure. And then I started his Moog. My Moog 3 was broken. I fixed that. And we immediately hit it off. And it's hard not to hit it off with Danny. What's hard about it is the opportunity to meet him because, for obvious reasons, marvelous guy. And one day he said, I'm thinking of doing a Plan B system. I've been buying some of the modules up on eBay as I see them. What do you think? For a new system to replace the Synthy he was using live. I said, great, terrific. I never pressed people at this point. Okay, I got Chaz involved, Chaz Smith, to build the case because as soon as Danny said I wanted it to be a special presentation, have a statement there, I knew exactly who to call. I didn't hear from Danny about it, and it was funny. About 5 weeks later, he said, "Well, I guess Chaz isn't interested." That's what Danny said. I said, "Oh no, my friend, we're waiting for you." And he said, "No, let's do it." We had 3.5 weeks. Some of these modules I hadn't built for years. Some of them were new that I knew were coming that I had to get ready. Chaz had to
build a whole system in 3 weeks?
3.5 weeks.
Fun.
I got that system back from Chaz, the case unwired on the Friday. They were leaving for a New Zealand tour on Monday. Okay. And I did it. I got over to Danny's studio, the Tool studio in Hollywood, 90 minutes before the limousine was coming to pick him up.
Oh, wow.
He filmed the whole motherfucking thing. I think we may have identified some timbres he might have liked, but he knows what he's doing on that. And he took off, and he was watching that movie of the 90-minute thing on the way over. Then
that's pretty awesome. Like that's the kind of stuff that it's like.
Oh yeah.
I would, I'm personally, I grew up. It's interesting. I grew up both, I started out in like punk, and then I got into like industrial and jazz, both of those right around the same time, and
Yeah.
hip hop as well a little bit after that. So Tool was Tool and Nine Inch Nails both kind of played a big role in my, I mean, those are my teen years,
Oh yeah.
So you got to understand, I'm a teenager during that time. So for me, it's like I hear about these things and I'm like, oh, well, these guys were latching onto this stuff. So it perks my ears up to say, okay, well, what were they interested about it? And
Yeah. Yeah.
nowadays, when I'm kind of making patches or I'm doing things, I'm not really thinking about my past, but it's
Right.
still influencing me as I go. Like
Yeah.
as I said before, I love dirty sounds. It's
Yeah.
just something that's always been ingrained in me. So the
Yeah.
fact that I'm hearing that, okay, well, he's using this to replace a synthy. It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive.
And well, wait a minute. The story isn't in here. So this is 3.5 weeks. I'm finally getting some sleep. Right.
Uh-huh.
I made it. I remember. I thought for a while that there was a problem. I thought I'm not going to make this. I talked to my dad. Listen to this, Ken. He's like, Peter, you've got to do. He didn't know Tool from a banana, but he had heard about it from me. He goes, you got this is it. This is the one. You got it. So we made it. I get a goddamn email from Danny. They delivered it to the wrong city
Oh,
in
nice.
Australia. Then it got held up at customs. Everything about a modular synth in X-ray looks like a bomb. Okay.
Well, yeah, I've traveled. I've traveled with small systems and prototypes of certain gear that I'm not supposed to pull out at an airport, and that's never fun.
Yeah, that's like a girl opening up a statement. Okay, you know what? The sentence never else ends well, right? So, I got a picture from Kevin Key of Danny with his glasses on with the system. It was a room I had never seen in my life, so I knew he got it. He got it 2 hours before sound check at the first show at the Australian tour. And there's a bunch of videos out now, these drum solos, and he never does things twice the same way, and it's always fucking interesting. Okay, and he loves it. So yeah, and we're now friends. I mean, there'll be evenings where we'll stay in the studio all night just listening to music, and it's great until he puts on Utopia. He loves Utopia. I cannot handle that man. Yeah, but a lot of jazz, a lot of Tony Williams. Sometimes it's comedy. He's a wonderful man. Okay, he's a guy that look. His dad died a month before mine did. Okay, and I had disappeared. I was driving around. I was depressed. It was like 1 in the morning. And I swung by the studio. And I saw a bunch of cars out front. And I just walked in. And he had just performed with Volto at the Baked Potato. And he had some people over. And he saw me, dude. And he hugged me and lifted me off the ground. And he, he knew. It was, he's the kind of guy this is the guy you talk about when there's a serious problem. You'll get a human who listens. So anyway, that's it. It was a great opportunity for me. Say what you will about Peter Grenader, but no one's going to knock Tool. And that's
yeah, that's they strike me as the type of people that are fairly intellectual as far as what they're trying to do, and the fact that, I mean, you're talking about the percussionist, the drummer, who is the synth nerd, is kind of off kilter a little bit there, but
they toured once with King Crimson, and he and Robert Fripp. I know Robert Fripp. We have an email friendship. Great respect, and Danny is a musician. He was Carole King's drummer before he was a Tool drummer.
Really?
Yeah, he was. Can you imagine that? Right? He was a studio drummer before he was a thing happening. So he has great respect for a guy like Fripp, and very much so Adam Jones and Fripp. And there's some very interesting stories I can't share, not because they're perverted, because they're personal.
Well, they should be perverted. Let's be clear. All
I got one story about ministry at. I can't talk. That was the weirdest fucking story I've ever heard.
I feel bad because I met Ministry recently, and though I grew up listening to them, I had never seen them in concert or in person.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize them at all. And, but this is an ongoing thing for me, is that like I've had beers with people that like I've grown up listening to and loved, and just like I'm not that kind of guy that's like, I don't have that. White people all look the same to me. Let me just say it. For some reason,
I spent a lot of time selecting my shirt. Had you told me this before, I would have not worried about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, what I want to ask you about real quick is the other module, the Model 12. So the Model 12 dual Vactrol filter. Something about that I want to know is most LPGs are exactly that, low pass gates, right? So you've got low pass only, but this I'm seeing band pass and high pass on it.
You're getting your numbers confused, young man. Drop and give me 20. It's the Model
12. I'm looking at the damn thing right now. It has
you're
LP1.
Right. Yes. But wait.
Okay.
It's the Model 13, which is the low pass gate, Salon and key. Okay.
No. Yeah, but I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the Model 12. And what I want to know is about the fact that you made one that has band pass and high pass and low pass all on it.
That's because it's not a low pass gate circuit. It's an original, and it's not Salon key. It's a state variable filter.
Oh, it is
completely architecture. Yeah, and it is identical to the original, except I did some. There was two problems with the original. It's not that it couldn't have super high resonance. It sounded like a friggin' kazoo, so I backed it off. To the dismay of many people that used it. They want what you want. They want, and it was
not always. Like certain things I think sound better a little bit subtle, like band pass. I love band pass and high pass filters that just kind of move a sound. They don't take over a sound, but they move a sound. Right. Low pass, I really like to add harmonics with low pass through resonance, through resonance and feedback. But band pass especially, I love. Honestly, I love poly sounds that go through band pass.
Oh yeah,
sweep the band pass as you're playing with it.
Like,
oh God, it gets me.
Outside of low pass gate, which is low resonance, Buchla didn't even have anything with band pass. He loves them, and for good reason. So yeah, I'm with you with there, brother. But so I figured out how to induce high feedback without it sounding like a zoo. So I incorporate that. You can use this as a sine oscillator. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's another feature. I used to have this crossfader, went from 2 to 4 pole. It took all the low end out. I knew it took the low end out the day I slapped it in there. That's gone. And I put my IFM sync in there from the Evil Twin filter, the Model 11, and by way of the Steiner filter.
Can you explain the IFM sync for us?
I can't go into details. A lady must have her secrets, okay?
Well,
but it's a very stiff.
When I press that button, what the hell is happening? Like, am I hearing? What am I hearing?
I'll tell you what you'll hear. I would feel better if I didn't tell you how you hear it, as far as the technology involved.
You don't have to get into any trade secret. But what I do want to know is, so if I'm looking at this module and I press that button, what should I timbrally expect?
In low resonance situations, you won't expect much. Mid resonance situations, you will start hearing a much more definitive harmonic, and I mean harmonic in two senses, not just the overtone series, but a harmonically related second overtone series. And when it starts jumping off harmonics, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But in high harmonics, high resonance, you will actually hear two resonant frequencies that are tuned to each other.
What does the I in the FM sync mean?
IFM sync means incoming frequency modulation sync.
Okay.
Yeah, and I gave too much.
Will allow us to sync the resonance?
It only affects the frequency side control circuit, but manifest in the resonance. How I discovered it was on the Evil Twin breadboard. Resonance is feedback. Where you make that loop depends a lot on how it sounds. So I do one, that sounds right. I don't like that. Oh, that's good. And then I did another one, but I left the first one in. and I had 2 feedback paths, and that's what that does. That's how you do it. Okay, and I was like, holy shit, are these tuned to a fifth or an octave from each other, because they're not resonating at the same frequency? And that's the IFM sync.
That's
and then
the fun.
Oh man, look, yeah, and the problem is it can be incorporated in almost any filter, but that's, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, let me ask you this. You've got input select on there, and it looks like, is that a smooth sweep between?
No, that's a rotary switch. What that is, you can link the first filter to the second filter. You can have them 2 completely independent. You can have them both in parallel, so they're both getting the signal from the first input. So the second filter doesn't even need a input, or you can select the output mode of the first filter, which then runs into the second filter.
Okay,
So
and all of this can be pinged from a Vactrol, or with a Vactrol on it.
2 Vactrols per filter for a total of 4. That's why I knew I had to get this thing out, because Vactrols are dying in this world, and that's why the next thing is the Heisenberg, because that has a Vactrol in it too.
So, well, I think who is it? Is it? I don't know if you're even aware of this. You probably are, but I guess it's Behringer or somebody is manufacturing like on a mass scale Vactrols now.
Behringer has a cool audio.
Cool audio.
Yeah, and some of the things that they've done are really cool. Some of them is like they're selling copies of ICs, quad VCAs, saying they're theirs, but they're not. They also do reprocessing for RoHS. They get rid of the lead in the solder.
Oh yeah. So they can sell them overseas.
So they were doing that for other companies, and I think buying some of that inventory and rebranding it as a cool audio part. They don't have the dies for. You think that analog?
Oh, you're saying so that it's not that they're actually remanufacturing. You're saying that they're just taking
in some cases, but these Vactrols, anyone can build a Vactrol. They're doing them themselves, and thank God. One thing that bothers me about cool audio, it's like, sure, we'll sell you 5,000 each minimum. It's like, oh, come on, man, come on.
Yeah, really. 5,000 in Euroland is like, oh, you're selling to every single person out there, huh?
Well, no, you have to buy. You can't buy 2. You can't buy 100. You gotta buy 5. It's like, come on.
Yeah,
come on, just help out the little guy so we can be big and buy 20,000.
I know that like some people I know, Anamodule, for instance, which they're fairly low manufacturing quantity. They're actually still rolling their own Vactrols just because it's difficult to get a hold of what they need. And then it becomes a match. Then it still becomes a situation of after they roll their own Vactrols, you got to freaking test them and see what the response is. You know?
Yeah, because the technology of the cadmium in the light respondent resistive element, it's the decay time in a Vactrol is quoted between 2 milliseconds and 5 seconds.
That's a Vactrol right there. I'm just showing people. These are actually rejects. So
okay, I'll take it.
From Anamodule that I asked for. I said, send me some of your rejects because I'm just gonna kind of play around with some passive circuits.
I bought a bag of them from an eBay sale of 300 that aren't Vactech, they aren't Perkin-Elmer, they aren't the other company. There are some. They're like they look like round beads with 4 leads coming out of them. I've tested about 4 of them. The guy told me up front, half of these might not work, but you only paid $4 for 200 of them, and I did.
So shut your face.
No, I can't wait till I have a day to sit there and say, okay, how much current does it take to turn on that friggin' LED, and what is coming out? Because they're gonna. I hope they don't go away, but they have cadmium in them, dude.
Let me ask you this about the Model 12. If I want to use the Model 12 not so much as a Vactrol pinged response, if I just want to kind of use it as a regular state variable filter, can I do that? Can I send it?
It's what are its personality traits that are nice? It has extremely big low end response, and what that means, it as a or you can drive it to a very low frequency, and that's what breeds low end. Okay, and it's the all pass filter sounds like a phase shifter.
Now, when you say you can bring it to a very low frequency, are you talking about just sweeping low, or are you talking about like resonance boosting on low, or like?
Yeah, that's look. Put a filter, make it an oscillator, and there's a frequency, right? Well, it's always doing that, but it's not always in a feedback circuit, so you don't hear it oscillating. But the lower frequency you can get on that frequency pot will determine the amount of low end on low pass mode.
So if you go really low and then you use that IFM sync, which as we were talking about, you can get these kind of strange overtones on there. You can really make that sucker shake your house, right?
Dude, if you just engage that and get like, you know, not non-existent resonant harmonic pinging, but you know, in the middle, and sweep that, you'll just go, what did I just hear? What is that? And it's good. And I'm telling you, it's just a unique sound. I haven't.
Good.
I don't listen to this right now. I don't have a Model 12. I gave it to Tim, Dipole Sander. I don't even have a Model 41. I gave it to Niall. I want to do a demo video for both of those. I have a half-built 12.
So do I. I mean, I'll tell everybody. I want to demo videos.
I'm getting a few. I'm getting like 3 from Dark Place. One's going to Danny, of course. I'm keeping one, and I'll give one to you for a demo, no problem.
So let me just say a little bit about the whole fact that you're using Dark Place. So because Dark Place is, you know, that's Joshua Hawley's kind of spot.
That's the reason. Stop.
And yeah, that's what I wanted to get to is I had Joshua Hawley on I think 2 episodes ago, and that guy is a liar and thief. No, I'm kidding. But he seems to have really understood the idea of getting a place together where creative minds can create and then manufacturing can happen, you know, which is a big deal. Like, it sounds like, you know, to maybe people outside of, you know, this that are just receiving modules, it might not mean that much, but if you're, so I'm a synth DIY guy. I enjoy the pride that comes with building a module, even if it's from a kit. Like, I'm not an electrical engineer by any means. I can read a diagram, I can read a schematic, I can kludge together certain circuits, but I'm not you know, I'm not
I never went one day of engineering school myself. You got to remember that. I'm not schooling this.
But what I'm saying is that like, so there's a pride in craftsmanship, right? Sure. But at the same time, with understanding when I like to build a module, be it from Synthrotech or SynthCube or somebody like that, Thonk, whatever, you start to recognize, like when you start building these things, you realize that it takes a lot of time to build this stuff. Okay. So unless you have pick and place machines, unless you have like the actual equipment to do this stuff on a large scale, it becomes very difficult to manufacture something that, you know, realistically speaking, even with Eurorack in its current heyday,
right,
is still small and selling to small quantities. You know, it's not selling to Kmart. You know, it's not selling to Walmart. So
we might find Pittsburgh Modular in a Kmart soon. I'm just kidding.
Well, you can actually go on Walmart.com right now and buy a Pittsburgh Modular system. So be aware of that. The fact is that he is, at least, you know, they've set up a manufacturing place that's allowing the creatives to create and then the manufacturing to happen in a proper way that you don't get 95% reject rates, that you're getting proper return for your investment, because it is your product. Even though you're having it manufactured by some place like Dark Place, it's still your product, and you still need to, at the end of the day, you're accountable for what's sold. So the fact that we have this is really interesting now.
Yeah, the reason why I know it will work is because Josh is involved. Look, he was one. Dieter and he were the only 2 guys that proved that they had their shit together for every step of the process. Okay, and I've worked with Nico, who's, I just want to take him home and hug him. He's a great guy. Okay, Anna is that. I didn't know who is this Anna. She has proven herself to be really sharp and responsive Lars is great, but Josh was the reason I went. Josh and I were going to release a line of synth modules together. We were going to incorporate our designs for Serge format. We worked on it for a year. It never happened. That's okay. It might happen someday. But he's a guy you can try. I swear to God, you know, there may be problems. There's one little problem with the 41, one problem I caused, one not. But I didn't even have to worry about it, man, because this guy has his crap together. And that's why I felt it was a good thing. Other companies approached me. Other similar type arrangements within the synth market approached me. I quoted all of them. Josh is the kind of guy, look, you know, find the best solution for yourself. And Josh was the best solution.
And that's saying a lot, because what I've noticed is the synth industry, the Euro-Rack industry, the modular industry as a whole, for the most part, seems to be really good. You know, I haven't encountered too many people that I would brand as an asshole, but I have encountered a few people that I would say are impressively good to deal with. Impressively
there's a
personable.
few. There's always a few egos.
Yeah, and there's egos, but at the same time, you know, I'm you know,
yeah,
I do this show at a very it's literally a fandom aspect of it. You know, like I'm somebody who's a fan who also happens to work making sounds and making, you know, music for people. So because I'm such a fan, I'm like, honestly, let's be realistic. We're not getting an HBO show about Euro-Rack manufacturing right now. So for me, I'm like, you know, okay, well, I'll do this because I have access. But luckily, I have people like yourself and people like Josh and people like Chris Randall and Glenn Darcy that are actually willing to be nice people about this.
Ken Stone, Jim Patchell.
Yeah, Ken Stone, I'm actually really interested in interviewing as well. I haven't tried reaching out to him yet, but
I have a funny feeling the CIA may be watching on that one.
I don't know. I don't have interactions with everyone in the synth industry just yet. But there are certain people that like Thomas Henry. You know, like I don't have any interactions with him at all. If anyone knows him, you know, put a bug in his ear that I'm kind of looking for him. But there's a lot of things out there, and the ear products that are, you know, forthcoming. You know, there was history there that kind of struck me, because I remember when I first, and again, I'm recent to Euro-Rack modules in the grand scheme of things. My first case started like just over 3 years ago, because, you know, I had heard about it for a long time. I was like, I want to do that, but guess what? I'm broke. Like I had somebody comment the other day about all my gear, and they were like, "Oh, you're not broke. You've got all this gear." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. Like this is ramen noodle soup." Seriously.
Right.
So yeah, like sometimes, you know, like I want more synth than I want TV. Put it that way. You know, I want more synth than I literally do not have a car. You know. You know, I would rather have this. So
and you'll notice building them, you can get a module for $12-15 if you have the metal already.
Again, yeah, and that's one of the cool things about the whole synth DIY field, is the empowering and also the ability to. I'll say to an extent, synth DIY can save you money, but at the same time, synth DIY can cost you money. So.
As long as you can handle the aggravation.
As long as you can, you have the, like, if your time is not as valuable, you know what I mean? Like, there's an aspect of that, because I'm, you know, I handle wiring daily, so I'm kind of confident in that. I grew up with a ham radio operator as a father, so my dad was very nerdy as that kind of stuff goes. So, you know, I was able to pick up soldering very easily, but for somebody who's not adept at that kind of thing naturally, it might not even be worth it. But to somebody who it is, I try to make sure that they can jump into that kind of stuff.
Well,
So,
let me give you some guidelines, and not because I'm all knowing. I am not.
fair
For
enough.
you, for me, designing as a electronic engineer is the same thing as patching a modular system one step down.
Sure.
Okay?
I would see that.
So when you understand how to make an LFO, not an LFO for our sense, but a voltage controlled or current controllable oscillator for control purposes within a circuit, when you know how to do a VCA in a circuit, you just say, oh, wait a minute, I want voltage control resonance. I stick a VCA in there. And that's what it is. It becomes like a puzzle of pieces that are, and you get more sophisticated and you can say, well, I got a problem when I turn this knob up. Let me stick a diode in the feedback circuit. It's a 5-volt diode. I know it won't kick in until that voltage is higher than 5 volts, but it's got a smooth conductance curve, so it's going to smooth out this thing I'm hearing. You get there, but you start off going, well, let me take a VCA circuit from this guy there and this, and suddenly you've got a random voltage generator that's voltage controllable.
Have you looked at things in the software world, such as like
Yeah, of course.
Reactor and that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, the Model 17 is modeled after a stepped comparator module that used to be available in Reactor. I thought it was a marvelous idea. They actually called me to say, I knew it is good, isn't it? They loved the fact I did that. And but they canceled it, and nobody bought the Model 17, man. It was an albatross. The people that did buy it bought 4 of them, but most didn't.
So right now, Model 12 and what's the other one again? The 41.
Model 41. After that will be the new Heisenberg, which
No, what is that? What is that? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, the Heisenberg generator was one of the old ones. It's a stepped and smooth, wiggly and or arbitrary random voltage generator.
Here it is. Here it is. Model 24.
Yeah,
I'm on EARsynth.com. So
completely independent. The top half is the smooth output and the controls to that. The bottom half is the stepped output with the controls to that. The new part gives you a third output, which is a quantized version of the stepped output. And you have 4 selectable user scales. I could have done more, but this isn't a quantizer. It's a random voltage generator. Okay. I'm looking off the side because that's where my screen is. There you go. You had it. Oh, I think you double click on it. Then you have to stop the animation.
yeah. Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah. Stop that animation there. No. Up and top. There's the X and the stop sign. There you go. It's going to sit there now. Okay. So, before, the bottom arbitrary stepped generator was, when you turned up the frequency, was not giving you metric. It wasn't that. It was a random selection of musical intervals. Okay, and I made sure there was syncopation in there. And this is all coded by Phil Gallo. Okay, it wasn't accidental. It was designed. If you wanted your random to step metrically, you'd have to stick an external voltage. Now you don't have to do that. There'll be a button that will tell you it can be either metric or random as far as advancement. Okay. The button to the right, to the left of the bottom knob, will let you select one of 2 quantized translations. There'll be a jumper in the back that will let you select another 2. So you either group 1, 2, or the second group of 1, 2. Okay. Again, it's not a quantizer. It's a random voltage. So there'll be 4 different, there'll be fifths, there'll be a major scale, there'll be a chromatic scale, and there's
So is it sort of like a sample and hold, but at the same time it can go to what you want it to go to, or?
Yeah, but you can control absolutely as a sample. That's what most random voltage arbitraries are. It's got its own up and down reference. It's got its own range off, up and down, and you can also take the controls out and run it from external inputs. You'll notice, Ken, in the you see that little piano?
Yeah.
That's the quantized output. If you follow it down, the arrow backwards, you'll see that piano logo again. You can use this as a standalone quantizer alone. If in that input, in between the knob and the jack, you put an external voltage, it will then sample that at the pacing of sampling that you set up by the frequency. So you can use this as a quantizer. Okay, so, and then let's go to the top half. This is the same thing at the bottom half, but a completely different source of the random internally. And it has a voltage controllable slew generator at the end of it.
I was going to say, I saw the slew on there.
Yeah, so it's a wiggly one. So the buttons up there will let you make that advance metrically. And by metrically, you know what I mean, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the button to the left will cross modulate the top with the bottom. And that's
really
when things get really wild. Yeah, I'm going to release some of the legacy modules. I hate saying that because I don't feel there's any legacy with me. Okay.
So this looks to me like something that, to put it gently, is a little bit of an abstract kind of module concept. So
yeah,
this is something that I honestly feel is going to be very dependent on people demonstrating its actual usage to really kind of put it into the mindset of people.
Yeah, well, because wait a minute, because it's not borrowing from Moog topography. It's more Buchla and Surge, and some people thought I had copied a steps and smooth generator. That's because I used that little box that folds both sides and it has the word stepped and smooth. It's nothing like that. It's a random voltage generator. It gives you wiggly voltage on top and bottom on bottom. And the reason why I wanted wiggly is, man, doing random panning on the Buchla. Oh man, I love that. And there's a trick I do, Ken. You got to remember, when I use a synthesizer, it's for completely different than what you would do it for. But if you use the same,
to preference that, the things that I use it for are ridiculous anyway. So
no.
Sound designing of like kick drums, snare drums, hi-hats, weird noises, and then I make music. So
no, absolutely. And I have I went to Cal Arts, man. If they opened Gary Chang said, if they opened up a school of culinary school, they would call it the School of Food Arts.
Uh-oh. Hold on. We lost Peter for a second here. Let's see if he comes back. It could be interesting. All right. So let's hang on for a second. Let me see if I can grab Peter. He may have ditched out. I'll be ending the show shortly either way. But let me see what just happened here. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second. That might help. So, it looks like I have to grab Peter, which he'll probably enjoy. He seems like the kind of person that would enjoy me grabbing him. Again, we're talking about EAR, which is Electro-Acoustic Research, which is the new company for Peter Grenader, and it's basically all, Steiner Parker 4-pole filter, which is not the same as the Mini Brute filters or the Matrix Brute, and he's got a lot more coming. So let me see if I can grab him real quick. Oh, it looks like he's rejoining. We'll see what happens here. Who's inquisitive? Who wants to know whether or not he actually makes it back? This is kind of like one of those superhero films where they travel to the fourth dimension, except it's not as terrible casting as something like Fantastic Four. Let's see what happens here. Let me call him on his phone, and we'll see if that works. You're seeing what is in effect live awesome sauce. Okay, let's see what happens. So again, I'm on the phone with Peter Grenader because he apparently is too good for YouTube. Okay, here we go. There you are. You're popping in
There
now.
I am. Okay, I'm not going to worry about my stupid name at the bottom of the screen. Okay, you know. All
Well,
right.
listen, let's not call it stupid because you were given that name by a great person and you need to respect that.
That's true. I don't know where you left me. Was I crying about something?
Basically, we left you. We were talking about your interest in hardcore sex shops and pornography.
That was a rumor.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
As he
okay.
was over.
That might have been me. I
Yeah.
might have been what do they call that when projecting? Okay.
Ken, he was over 18. No, I'm just
There you
kidding.
go. So the 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 thing that I wanted to, because we're getting ready to close out anyway, but
Okay.
the thing that I wanted to get to is, so the Steiner 4-pole filter
Yes, sir.
is what's out now, right?
No, they shipped 3 days ago, 4 days ago from Dark Place, the first line.
Okay,
There's,
so Perfect Circuit Audio and Analog Haven, or is it just Analog Haven, or who?
I don't know. I know
Okay.
that what's the one in Europe?
Select distributors everywhere.
Yeah, I know that Analog Haven just put a huge order in. Thank you, Sean. I know there's a guy in Europe, Matt.
Yeah, Matson Modular. Yep.
He bought some. Look, some of these people are wait and see. They knew it was going to happen, despite my reputation because of Josh. But they want to see if how the sniff goes.
They want to have module in hand and make sure.
No, they want to see the reaction to from people who bought them. Um, I know they built 250 of them. I think they've shipped close to 80 to dealers already. And I couldn't ask for more, man. Look, Ken,
So
I didn't know it was going to happen. So as anything that's good is great for me.
so the bottom line is that not only do you have these two modules that are currently coming out, you've got a long line of modules that are coming. And
I have
you've got
6 or
Model
7.
7, Model 24, Model 10, Model 16, Model 27. These are all listed on your site. If you go to EAR-synth.com, you'll
Yeah,
be able to check out. You can go to EAR products, and there's past, present, and future. So you can see all these beautiful designs right there. I got to be honest with you. I'm pretty interested in the bulk of these. None of these really look boring to me. They don't look like anything that is just like, oh, it's utility, whatever. I'm bored. They
yeah,
all look like they bring something to the table, which has me interested. This spectral multiplexer looks insane. The After Effect generator looks insane. So I mean, there's a lot going on there, and it looks like you guys are going to be back in a big way.
I,
Oh, and that's the other thing is that when you go to the website, be advised, sound automatically plays.
okay. I got the idea that people hate that, so I can take it out.
I meant to actually text you about that, and I
That's what
didn't
I
hit
got.
you up about that yet. But yeah,
What I will do as soon as I find out how to put a
it
button.
sounds cool if you listen to it.
Yeah, but your boss hears and your cat wakes up. You know.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But as soon as I figure out with WordPress how to put a switch in there, turn it off, I'll have it default to off.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, 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 yeah. Because
yeah,
that's something that is no longer acceptable in the world.
yeah, that's
So,
right. I guess.
but I will say, my initial thinking when I went to the new site was, okay, you can't do that. But after that, I did sit there and just kind of listen to it for a minute, and it's actually really freaking cool. So,
Thank you. That's
can
actually
you give us a little bit of of reference as to where that sound is from?
Yeah, that's from my record. That's from a piece called Secret Life of Semiconductors. You can buy it on iTunes. Here's the address. And this is a 25-minute homage to Morton Subotnick's Until Spring. It was a piece I wanted to write my whole life. And it's so funny. I gave up music. I never stopped thinking about this. Times in my life where I should be thinking, look, she loves me too, and we're having sex. I'm thinking, oh, I know how to get to the fucking coda. Okay, I never forgot, and I finally did it. And that is actually the end of this fourth transition into part 4. So that's from a piece of mine, and it's all Plan B stuff.
Very cool. Very cool.
And there'll be a switch soon to turn it off. I think we're we're winding down. This has been 9 hours. Ken, you're fantastic.
It's been 3 months, 7 years, and 2 days, and 27 minutes and 32 seconds. So, with that being said,
33 seconds. Yeah,
exactly. 3 minutes.
33 seconds. Yeah.
Exactly. So John Cage would be proud. And what I'll say is, anybody out there who's interested in checking out some really interesting, high quality modules, I would highly recommend checking out Electro-Acoustic Research, which is EAR-synth.com, and there is some really cool modules coming. So definitely check that out. Is there anything that you want to say, Peter? Just to kind of close out?
This is what I say. I want to thank anyone and everyone for their support. I'm approaching this humbly. The most important thing is that you're responding to me as an individual and as an active or helper. I'm able to come back in this thing I love. I want to thank Ken because I have a funny feeling in time this is going to be an instrumental step. He approached me, and dude, you're a great guy. Respect. And I think you've cornered a market, a service that was lacking in this thing, this immediate interaction and meeting the people. Nothing but good will come of this.
I don't know. I don't know if there's any market for me to corner, but if there's people out there that are interested in audio, interested in music production, interested in synthesis, I'll just say that please share this around. Please let other people know about it because, to be completely honest, it's a really small group of people. I mean, I could be posting videos of me Minecrafting or something and get 1,010,000 visits every day, but instead I'm doing this stuff, which is far smaller. I mean, my kids yell at me every day about, Dad, why aren't you doing YouTube videos about video games? And I'm like, well, because I'm a nerd. And that's what you were born into, and you have to deal with it. So I'll just say a shout out to a couple of people. bboytechreport.com is doing a modular journal right now. Soundsandgear.com is doing a modular journal right now. We've got Modular Beatsmith, which is doing a modular thing right now where he's just got done kind of showing all the expert sleepers disting stuff. So you should go check that out. You should also check out his tremor review. As far as fluxwithit.com is concerned, I'm going to, I've taken all of my products are down right now. You can't buy my products anywhere, which is, well, I guess you can still go to bigfishaudio.com and grab a few, but I'm going to put all of my products back up in a new space fairly soon. So just be patient about that. And I have at least 4 or 5 new products coming. So just be patient on that stuff and I'll get it out. Most of the people who are buying that stuff aren't probably the people watching this, so it doesn't really matter. But enjoy life, bourbon, and the summer. That's my message to everybody right now. So, Peter, I want to thank you for coming on. It was
oh man, thank you.
A humbling experience to get to talk to another synth master as well. So until next show, this is the Synth Summit Show. Peace.
Yeah, I look forward to shaking your hand someday, Ken, and I owe you a bourbon.
Hopefully, possibly, I'm working very hard to make this happen. I don't know if it will happen because I do have a very busy summer schedule. But I'm hoping to get to the next what's the synthesizer meet out in Chicago?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're saying. I can't think of it either. And I'm trying to get
Thai guys event. Oh my god, I feel terrible right now. I'm
NobCon, isn't it?
NobCon, absolutely. I'm really hoping to get to NobCon. And if so, I hope to
Yeah,
do.
I have to start thinking about going to those things now. So yeah, I'll
Well,
be
you
up.
know, NobCon is interesting because it's not really in the music industry areas. So it's not in LA, it's not in New York. It's in Chicago, which is
Right.
very different. But I mean, come on, like the camaraderie and the scene that's out there is really cool. So
Oh yeah.
I definitely want to get out there. I'm gonna be doing some videos on some Mode Machine stuff soon too, like the Zox box that you see behind me.
Yeah,
So
he's
I've
cool.
got a few reviews that are coming up. The SynthCube Thriller VCF, which I don't know, Peter, if you've gotten a chance to check out the Thriller VCF,
No,
that is a cool filter. So
I'll go by Analog Haven. They got everything, and I do that regularly. What kind of scope is that? Is that a Tektronix?
no, actually, this is a Hitachi.
It's great.
It's an old analog Hitachi.
Just
Which
think about getting one of the digital ones, the Chinese ones. Your
I've been
mind.
actually looking at getting a Rigel or something,
Yeah,
or the Sigilant. The Sigilant's really affordable, but the ones that they have the new super phosphor display, so it
yeah.
kind of emulates the analog display. Because I look again, I'm not an
You gotta get
electrical
used to digital.
engineer. I only need so much O scoping, but
Yeah,
I really enjoy the look of it at the same time. So it's like,
yeah.
yeah, if I can get one of those Sigilant ones that emulates the phosphor, then I'll be really happy.
Well, here's the deal. They used to be a $1,500. Well, if you can get a digital scope for 200, 300, what?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I want to say like for somewhere between $400 and $600, you can get a really nice scope these days. And
Yeah.
and then there's Eurorack modules like O2
Also,
Plus.
oh man,
It
that
was
thing.
just announced, and then there's the Mordax Data,
Oh,
which
cool.
I would love to get hands on a Mordax Data. That thing looks pretty awesome too.
Oh yeah, when
But
you have to adjust your sine waves, now you can do with a module. It's friggin'
yeah,
great.
that's
So,
pretty well for me because I do a lot of demo videos. It would be really nice to have it in the rack so I could put it
yeah,
right next to whatever module I'm demoing. But
yeah,
you know, so for me, it's kind of a luxury item, but
right.
at the same time, you know, I could see how it would help others.
Yeah.
And
Hey
as
Ken,
broke as I am, for some reason, I still spend money to help other people.
Ken, I'll talk to Dark Place. We'll get you a Model 41. I mean, this has
That
to
would be
happen.
awesome. So
Okay, dude.
anyway, listen, I'll say good day to everyone, and I'm gonna get out there and enjoy the summer weather while I can.
All
So
right. Thank you.
peace.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. I don't know how to end this.
Oh, I got it.